So tonight I opened up my last bottle of Pyment, and as you can see here, it's a nice dark mead that I made back in, I believe it started April 10th of 2020, and I finished it off in September is when I bottled it, and I've been drinking one bottle every once in a while, and I found this last one was sitting on my shelf, and so I pulled it out, put it in the fridge. It's nice and cold, and started drinking it tonight. I realized I really liked the way that my Pyment came out, so I decided that it was time to make another one. So this time I looked back at my videos and could see where I made it and all the different times that I racked it in my videos, but I wasn't very clear on what I did. So I decided tonight I'd give you a little more information. So as you can see here, I've got two half-gallon jugs of Concord grape that I'm using to make my Pyment. I have a container of Nate's honey that I'm using the whole thing for. I have a Premier Champaign and yeast from Red Star that I'm planning on using in it, and I've got yeast nutrient and all that over there. So my first step of getting in my Pyment going is that I started by pouring as much of the honey in as I could into the jug, and then next I took my measuring cup, just the same way I would make ciders. This time I filled it with 2 cups of the Concord juice, and I put 1 cup into my honey that is currently helping dissolve some of the more honey so I can get it poured into here. There's a lot more at the bottom that was a lot more solid, so I'm having to deal with breaking it down before I can get everything going. So that's one of the things that I have to end up doing. And with the honey, especially if it's old, and especially if I want to use as an entire 2.5 to 3 pound jar, is I got to get it all out. So I do, but it is very similar to the way that I make cider. The big difference is I start with 3 pounds of honey versus just the 1 cup. And I think I figured out it comes out to about 3 or 4 cups of honey when I'm doing it by cup versus doing it by weight. But usually for this, I just grab an entire bottle, dump it in, and that's how I start. One of the things I sometimes end up with is a little bit of crystallized honey that doesn't go down in. Most of it I've already got put into the jar, but I realize there's still a little bit in the funnel. So for me, I've just thrown the crystallized honey straight into the jar. I expect it dissolves fairly easily after sitting in for a while, so I don't really try to break it up. I've never had any problems of finding that I've got crystallized honey sitting in the jars afterwards, so I think it works, but that's at least how I've dealt with it, is that I just make sure it's small enough it fits through the top of the jar, and then I just leave it down in there. I don't remember if this was a problem with the first time I made the Pyment, but I know I've seen this before, is that when I'm pouring in my juices, sometimes it does foam up, and I end up having to let it settle so that I can add more juice until I'm right up into the neck before I add everything else. But I know that last time I made this, I only just had the jar in the background and said that I had made it. I didn't actually record any of it, so this time I'm at least recording and showing that, yes, I deal with the foam. I'm going to let the foam go down so I can add in a little more juice. And after that juice is added in, I will add in my yeast nutrient, and I think that's about it that's going into this one. I don't think I need any pectin enzymes because I'm starting with a juice, and it doesn't have a lot of extra materials and fiber in it that I need to get rid of. That's where I really use the pectin enzymes for. So I have it all finished. I finally decided I wasn't going to wait on all the foam going down. I decided I was putting in my teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and then I put in the whole packet of the Premier Champaign into the bottle. I put the rubber cork into it, put my thumb over it, and shook it until it was well mixed. It's brought down some of the foam, but as you can see, the foam is still up into the neck. I will wait and see in a day or two whether I want to add any more juice into it to bring it up a little bit higher. Most of it will depend on how, where that foam ends up at when it goes all the way down, and how quickly it starts bubbling. If it really starts taking off and going in the next day, then I may just leave it as is. As if it looks like it's going to be sitting there for a little bit and the foam disappears and I've got a lot of extra headroom, I may end up adding more juice. It's going to be a wait and see. So at least I've got it going, and we'll see what it. Hopefully this time I don't wait until several months before racking it, and also bottling it. So we'll see if I do better this time or not.